If you're ready to unlock more better days, to take control of your health, to push past your limits and unleash your full potential, then you're in the right place. I'm your host, Dr. Jeremy Bettle. For over 2 decades, I've worked with elite athletes and high performers, helping them optimize their bodies, strengthen their minds, and recover from setbacks. Now I'm bringing that expertise to you through the Vitality Collective podcast. In each episode, we'll dive deep into the science, strategies, and real-world solutions you can apply right away. Whether it's enhancing your physical performance, avoiding or recovering from injury, sharpening your mental edge, or simply feeling your best every single day. With insights from top experts and thought leaders, this podcast is designed to help you take action, feel better, and live the life that you deserve. Welcome to the Vitality Collective podcast, where every day is vital. Today, I'm joined once again by Dr. Keith Witt, a renowned integral psychologist and author. In this episode, we dive deep into the life-changing concept of radical acceptance, taking full responsibility for all that we experience and do. We explore why high performers often get trapped by perfectionism, how to evolve into more powerful motivation systems, and what practices can help us grow through adversity. If you've ever wondered how to embrace who you are while still striving for more, this conversation is for you. Let's get started. I would like to welcome back for the second time, Dr. Keith Witt. Keith, thank you so much for coming back. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
So, Keith, one of the things that Michelle and I have been working on with you and in the background when we're not with you, is our ability to accept the events of our life, accept historical events, maybe it's present sensations that we feel in our body, and accept them and keep moving on with life and not fight things. And this is a concept that you've introduced to us that is radical acceptance. Mm-hmm. Now, over the past 10 to 15 years with Ryan Holiday's writings around Stoicism, and more recently, I think Mel Robbins popularized a concept that she termed let go or let them.
Let them.
Let them, yeah. What is the simplest definition of radical acceptance?
I take it from a researcher named James Masterson, a psychiatrist, writer, who worked with personality disorders. Mm. And when he described health, he said health is having responsibility, taking responsibility for everything you experience and do. So radical acceptance is recognizing I'm co-creating a universe. Mm. And it is exactly as it is. And my job is to radically accept what it is and navigate. And by navigating, I don't want to distort it. I want to have the clearest vision, which generally is compassionate understanding. And so radical acceptance is openness to being responsible for everything I experience and do, and taking responsibility to navigate my life according to my values. And that's, now within that, there's lots of stuff. Mm-hmm. For instance, part of it is being present. The more we're in the present moment, all of us right now in the present moment, the more able we are to navigate this present moment. Mm-hmm. And one of the burdens of human consciousness is it's just taking us out of the present moment all the time.
So Keith, let's dig into that a little bit. So you talked about this as it pertains to health, yeah. and I think that one of the reasons we include it as a foundational element of our program in Vitality is that it includes mental, emotional, spiritual health. Why is this so important that we pay attention to?
We humans have superpowers. And so, compared to everything else, superpowers. I'm watching a crow fly out, right now outside my window. A crow cannot make a shirt and put it on. A crow cannot have a conversation. A crow can't build a spaceship. I mean, I could go on and on. A crow cannot extend its awareness to the beginning of the universe, to the Big Bang, or to the end, the heat death of the universe 10 trillion years from now. I can. You can. We have superpowers. And our unconscious is always helping us navigate by sending us states. That's how human beings work. We're taking in hundreds of thousands of inputs. Our unconscious processes them, takes 7 of them, plus or minus 3, creates a story, an impulse, an action tendency, sends it up. We feel it. Our conscious awareness can catch it half second after it's generated, second. And if we're feeling super secure, it helps us generally navigate in a positive way. And this is why 8 billion people just generally get along. And cooperate and coordinate to the extent that an ultra-social species like us does.
Mm-hmm.
If our nervous system reads threat, then it generates another state that distorts reality in a way that motivates us to protect ourselves. And we'll talk more about motivation later. Motivation is a really big deal in radical acceptance. It's central. And this is, speaking to a lot of the people that we're addressing. We grow through different motivation systems. A motivation system that's appropriate for an 8-year-old or 10-year-old is not necessarily appropriate for a 38-year-old or 48-year-old, which is not necessarily appropriate for a 78-year-old. I mean, it changes. So this is just one of the many, many challenges to being self-aware human being, because radical acceptance involves radical awareness. And awareness of the present moment isn't just awareness of what's going on around us. It's awareness of these states that are coming up. And it's also awareness of how these states track with compassionate understanding of the world.
This is one of the things that we've been working on, Keith, certainly with our work together, is my awareness of these states that come up. And they feel disproportionate to what's going on in that present moment. And it feels like what you're talking about here is sort of the gap between my state internally and accepting what's actually going on in reality, that isn't life or death. And it genuinely feels like that 7 or 8-year-old nervous system cultivating a response to what might be going on that makes those sensations amplified. Yeah.
Now, you notice if you're observing yourself having a disproportionate reaction, somebody's observing. Yourself, your primary identity, is the observer. That observer is a little closer to the wise self that we all have at our core, right next to our soul. Now, this whole soul thing, now that just comes from my own existential orientation and my beliefs about how people exist energetically. It's not a religious concept. It's an energetic concept, though it tracks perfectly, really, with the core. And so that observation, if I'm having a disproportionate reaction, I'm going, well, I'm having a disproportionate reaction. The part of me that's observing that in the present moment is going, okay, I'm having it. Now, I can either accept that or not. I can go, no, this is not acceptable to have a disproportionate reaction. Okay, now Jeremy's smiling because
that feels like our work.
There you go, Jeremy. No, that's not acceptable to me.
Yeah.
Okay, that is not radical acceptance. Okay, that's like no way. Okay, now what that does is it creates an irresolvable tension. Because that no way is not wise self. That no way is another distressed part going, that I'm distressed at you being distressed. And my distressed part is to get rid of you distressed part. And now we got this.
Can you describe that tension a little more, Keith? Because that I think is at the root of my struggle with it. And I'm sure this is at the root of the struggle with radical acceptance. In that moment, it certainly doesn't feel like a disproportionate relationship. And so you do have these two conflicting, this sort of push and pull internally.
Yeah.
Where you just don't want to feel this.
No, and of course you don't. I don't want to feel emotional pain. I don't want to feel sadness or, shame or, anxiety, grief, panic. I mean, I don't know. You just make a list of everything unpleasant.
Mhm.
I don't want any of those things. Okay. The difference, if I go, okay, so I want to get rid of this. So then I go, oh, there's a part of me that wants to get rid of this, and there's a part of me that feels this. Okay, now who's the self? People have debated what consciousness is forever. I did a video once called "Who's Driving Your Bus." I used to do these jokes. I still have them on my website. There's 40 of them called "Therapists in the Wild." Right? Just jump on a soapbox and go. So one of them is "Who's Driving Your Bus?" So let's assume all our different selves are in a bus, and they're competing for who's driving. So if the part of us that wants to kill the guy in back is driving, that's a problem. Okay. But if the part is that has compassion and understanding for the part that doesn't like the part in back and the part in back, and they're fighting with each other, you're like dad driving the car and the two boys who are in back having a fight. Now how do you deal with it? Okay. Now that person who's having compassion and understanding for those two, that self is closer to wise self.
Mhm.
Okay. Wise self is a part of us that has compassion and understanding for everything and radical acceptance of everything. Okay. That's a very blissful and powerful consciousness. You're feeling it right now as I describe it.
Mhm.
And if those of you listening to this podcast, you're feeling it right now. Because we're ultra social people, we can share states. And now you're sharing radical acceptance with me. And we're looking at all the people in our bus with compassionate understanding and acceptance. And when you do that, it feels good. But
Mhm.
that also means I'm responsible for dealing with all those guys. And if one of them is just like one kid, if one of them is causing a lot of problems, you don't like grab your kid and throw him out of the bus. You can't do that. And so what you do is you go, okay, I have to give extra attention to that kid
Mhm.
and help him find his place or her find their place in the system. And by the way, this is at the center of all psychotherapies
Mhm.
and all spiritual practices. Buddhism, back in the Actionable period, Buddha, he wanted a technology to help people with problems of being a person. Because, it's difficult.
Mhm.
It's just a lot of stuff that we have to deal with as people. Not the least of which, how come I feel like I'm the universe and yet I'm anxious all the time? I mean, how do you put those things together? I don't know. I mean, you have to grow. I mean, the only way out is to develop through.
Mhm.
Either that or you just get locked in some kind of neurotic circle, like an obsessive compulsive person driving around the block again and again because they feel like they ran into somebody and they have to keep checking and keep checking and keep checking,
Mhm. Mhm.
until the cops finally come. That's an extreme example. That's actually a real example of somebody I heard about. Or we grow. And how do we grow? Well, what Buddha said is, okay, life is uncomfortable. People say that Buddha said life is suffering. That's not exactly right. Dukkha, the Sanskrit, when it's translated, is life is like an irritating ox cart wheel. Okay, and so he said that that's caused by us attaching. I don't want to be in an ox cart with a creaky wheel and I can't fix it, say, or maybe I'll try to fix it. I don't know. It's attachment. Me saying I don't want things to be the way that they are is what causes the real suffering. That's the source of it.
Mhm.
And then, of course, the third noble truth is we can liberate ourselves from that. How do you do it? And it's interesting, Buddha said that there's the Eightfold Path. Basically, he assumed that there were values, that if we lived according to our values, would liberate us from suffering. And this is where we're dealing with the Stoics. The Stoics talk a lot about a virtuous life, which if you look at it, looks like 1, living your values, and 2, radical acceptance. And 3,
Right.
you're responsible for everything you experience and do. Basically, those 3 things encapsulate all of Stoic philosophy.
Mhm.
And so Buddha said, right view. Right view is seeing things as they are. Radical
Right.
acceptance. Right conduct. Act according to your values. Right speech. We are hypersocial people. We matter to each other.
Mhm.
And so when I speak to you, it's a big deal. It's God speaking to God. It's somebody that has a lot of impact speaking to another human being who's ultra sensitive. And so I need to speak with respect for that and understanding of that. Right livelihood. We need purpose. If we don't have purpose, we suffer. If we have purpose and we're on purpose, particularly the masculine in us goes, that feels right. Right resolve. Why are we focused on doing something? Am I doing it to gratify egoic needs? Am I doing it to win? Am I doing it to get revenge? Okay, that's not right resolve. Right resolve is I'm doing it to fulfill my purpose. I'm doing it, I'm talking to you because it's my purpose to support the evolution of consciousness. That's what organizes me. And this serves that. There's right effort. I'm making an effort and always putting a speed governor on it by being critical of myself for not doing it faster, bigger, stronger, more successfully.
Can I touch on that, Keith, real quick? Because that's something that I feel a lot of high performers, high achievers would find it especially hard. So I feel like I set impossibly high standards for myself. And so I get a lot of conflict within me. And I believe, and I'd like to hear what you think about this, that high achievers in general have that conflict of we're not living up to our standards. We don't feel like we're living by our values, but there's an unachievable nature to those values.
So what's one impossibly high standard that you have for yourself?
So let's talk about my entrepreneurial journey. There are just things that I am not wired to do. With ADHD or whatever the reason, administrative tasks for me, like following up on emails, are torture.
Okay.
And there is an endless battle in me because I'm not good at following up, because I'm not this. I should be good at this. I feel like that there are things within the entrepreneurial sphere that I haven't had to do before that I should be able to master. And I look at other people that can, and I judge myself against that.
Okay. So where's the impossible? What's impossible about that standard?
I think there will always be things that other people are better at than me.
Yeah, okay. So the impossible part of it is I'm supposed to be the best on the planet. And if I'm not, then I'm not good enough. Right? So that motivation system of I'm never good enough is really an effective motivation system to move forward in life. We live in a highly competitive world. When we stop being tribes, tribes basically are kind of colony organisms. And I don't want to romanticize them. They're very fragile. You put almost any kind of other civilization next to a tribe and it dissolves like mist. It's very delicate, but there was millions of years where the only social organism that existed in the planet were tribes, and evolution happened with tribes kind of evolving to compete with other tribes, which is a very interesting thing. There arguably was a time 50 to 60,000 years ago where human beings self-domesticated, where there's a famine in Africa. And the more collaborative, the more socially effective tribes had an advantage. Because, you got to cooperate. People cooperating are way more powerful. People not. And so that's fine. But then there started to be when essentially when the patriarchy started. No offense. Hey, look, I didn't do it. I know I'm a guy, but I did not do the patriarchy. But anyway, when it started and we had power gods to create civilizations and stuff, those hierarchies, people wanted to rise on those hierarchies now. Now it's more individualistic. And a really good strategy for going up on a hierarchy is never being satisfied with yourself. Never good enough. And so what that does is it helps you have position on personally important power hierarchies, which is a drive. We have social hierarchies and we want to fit into them. We want And if we say I'm never high enough, it keeps me efforting. And in human society, that gives me an advantage, an evolutionary advantage.
I feel like it took me so far.
That's right.
It got me to the pinnacle of my career, quote unquote. But I feel that that's sort of where my evolution stopped, and I recognized that something needed to shift.
Right. That's when we started working together. I mean, think about it in terms of social hierarchies, okay? If you're a wolf, you're born, you're a pup, you hang out with your whatever, you're now a young wolf and you have to kind of defer to the alpha. Say you want to be kind of an alpha, you grow, get to be an alpha. Okay, kind of you reach your peak as a wolf at that point. And then somebody else beats you when you get old, and that's it. Human beings, we're born, now we find a place in our family, now we're in school, we have to find a place in school or in elementary school or whatever. And we're the king of elementary school or whatever, we have a position, then we go to junior high school, we have to do it over again, then we go to high school, we have to do it over again. Yeah, our first relationship, then, we screwed up, then we got to go to the next one, then we go to college maybe, and then we go to graduate school maybe, then we get into business, and then endless hierarchies. And what we discover is that the rules of progressing change. And what you said is 100% right. At a particular point, never being satisfied with who I am is an inferior motivation system. What's a superior one? Radical acceptance. I radically accept that I want to keep growing. I want to keep improving. Okay, so fine. I want to keep growing and improving the rest of my life in any dimension that matters to me. You do. So how do I maximize that? Well, I maximize that by one, accepting that drive of wanting improvement. And then two, feeling a sense of gratification and satisfaction, radical acceptance for exactly how I am. One of the recipes for happiness is expect everything to be exactly as it is. Radical acceptance. Now, from that position of, I want to keep improving, and I feel at peace and grateful for my level of expertise, my level of consciousness, my level of relationship, whatever. That combination is more powerful than I'm never good enough. Because I'm never good enough, that negativity is an inhibitor. It stops us. It doesn't access our spiritual power. I feel great the way that I am, and I want to keep growing. Oh, if there's some problem that happens, as I resolve it, I learn. If it kicks my ass, well, do I want to compete more effectively? Okay, I'll go figure out how to do it. Then next time, maybe I'll kick ass. Okay. I'm a martial artist. I mean, martial arts is just one long series of kicking ass or getting your ass kicked. I mean, it's just, imagine decades of that.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a quick feedback loop.
Such a quick feedback loop. And pretty much everything, though, is. Now, as you do that, you develop spiritual power. You develop a sense of it's not just me here. There's something working through me. My consciousness is not just in my body, in my brain, my whatever. It's part of a larger ultra-social consciousness of humanity, and then part of a larger interconnected system of the implicate order of the universe. It's all energetically connected, and we're the self-aware parts of it. I often say that the universe dream came into existence with the Big Bang, and it's been waking up to itself ever since. And we're the current most awake part of the universe to ourselves and to other people. Now that energy, that transcendence energy, gives you an edge. Okay, if you're Roger Federer, well, who's now Yannick Sinner now. If you're in the crucial point of the championship match at Wimbledon, and you're sitting there looking across at your opponent, and you go, "Oh God, I'm not good enough," but I'm going to do my best here. Okay, you're at a disadvantage. If you're Yannick Sinner and go, "Hey, I'm Yannick Sinner. I'm the number one player in the world, and I'm an instrument of God here. I am God as a tennis player. And I'm going to serve it to that corner right now. Bam. You have an edge. And so the motivation system shifts in mastery to both enjoying mastery, but also recognizing that what mastery is just a certain level of embodiment. When I got my black belt in Shotokan karate, what I discovered, which I didn't know for the first 2 years I studied, is that when you get a black belt, basically all it is you know enough about Shotokan karate to go teach Shotokan karate.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it means.
Right.
Okay. You know enough about Shotokan karate to continue to train on your own to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a PhD. PhD basically says, okay, you know enough about scientists to say you're a scientist, and now you can go and grow however you want to grow as a scientist. This is both of us. Both of us are scientists who have found ways of progressing as scientists that fit our psychology and so on. Which is, that's how our motivation system. Now, we could have stayed. I could have been a university professor, or you could have stayed and done that and worked within those hierarchies, kind of working your way up to being, I don't know, chair of the department or something. That didn't feel like it was true to our values. It wasn't. So you find out what your values are and be true to them. Okay. There's power there and there's growth there. There's no end to that. I first discovered this. I don't know. I've been discovering it progressively my entire life, but there was a shift in it when I encountered a Book of Five Rings by Miyamoto Musashi, which I mentioned in our last podcast. The first thing in the way of the warrior is a resolute acceptance of death. Well, when I read that, I was 30. I went, well, wow, that's radical acceptance of everything. That feels so right. And then do not think dishonestly. Radical acceptance of what is. Develop intuitive judgment about everything. Be open. There's wisdom everywhere, and I have some of it, and I don't have all of it, and I want to keep increasing it. Know the ways of all professions. Don't discount anything. Radical acceptance. When you go into battle, forget about everything you learned. Focus on cutting your opponent. Fully in the present moment, doing what you need to do. It's not about anything other than that.
Right.
So all that stuff to me applied to not just psychotherapy. I taught a whole class as psychotherapy as a martial art back in the 70s. It applied to how we live our lives. Motivation systems change as we change.
So Keith, I want to, one of the other writings that you talked about last time was your piece on, sorry, I'm making this sound easy.
Oh, yeah, right.
So I would like to talk about that struggle as you're shifting between these systems, these motivation systems. I'm currently right in the middle of it.
Yes, you are.
Feels like when I first had that realization, I got my first role as a performance director at the Toronto Maple Leafs. And my motivation system had been, when I achieve X, I will be happy. Now, performance director in professional sport is the top of the ladder in human performance. There's nowhere else to go, essentially. And that was going to be the thing. I was in charge of the system, had big influence within an organization, and yet there was something else.
Yeah. There was great success doing that.
Huge success.
Huge success.
Yeah. That's where we went. 3.5 years, no injuries.
3 years, no injuries.
Right.
Yeah, okay. In hockey, professional hockey.
Right. 100 games a year in the NHL.
Yeah.
And so you've got the top role in sport. Toronto Maple Leafs are in the top 20 most valuable sports franchises in the world. We've set records for most number of players to play all 82 games in the franchise history. No one else in the world had done 3.5 years injury-free in any sport. And there was still something missing, and the transition into that new motivation system is ongoing for me.
Yes.
And so I want to talk about two things. What can people expect at the other side of this? What difference can it make? But then also, why is there such a struggle, and how do we make those steps to get through it?
There's a struggle because our nervous systems don't give up what they associate with survival. Not being good enough and not celebrating success were central to your survival as a child.
That's a really important point there, Keith. Can you repeat that?
Yeah. Our nervous systems do not give up what we associate with survival. And so for you, not letting yourself celebrate success and feeling like you're not good enough were associated with your survival psychologically in your family. I mean, those characteristics, never mind about, high performance, just think about a child needs to feel accepted and secure in their family, and they will adopt the attitudes and the perspectives. Their unconscious will determine what are the perspectives and attitudes that I need to do to feel secure in this family. And it's different for everybody because we're all born with a different personality, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're born highly conscientious as you were, okay, I'll be highly conscientious. And if you're in an environment where, hey, don't celebrate successes, it's wrong to. We're also born with moral foundations. We're driven genetically to be moral and fair, having to be caring, to respect, to be loyal, to respect authority, to respect what's sacred, liberation. All these things these aren't social constructs. These are drives, and the social puts form on them. But what if the form is, it's immoral for me to celebrate success?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And unsafe. All right. You can grow values, and values do grow, and motivation systems. But that's a hard one.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So how do you do it? Well, the way that you've done it and are doing it, and the way I'm doing it, is you go, okay, what's the value that I feel is a superior value? Well, a superior value is you do your best, and when a success happens, celebrate, and then move on. And celebrating success is just as important as radically accepting failure. Failure hurts. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't. Success feels good. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't. So it hurts as much as it hurts. Okay. Now, if I try to take it hurting and then get pissed off and then I attack myself, so I'm a loser. All right, it's hurting and I get pissed off and I attack somebody else. Oh, it's all your fault that I do. That takes me out of the present moment. There's no radical acceptance happening whatsoever. There's no acceptance at all. And it interferes with development. But if I'm going, hey, I'm feeling great, and doesn't mean I'm always going to win, but I certainly win this time. Or, I feel bad. What can I learn from it? Here's what I can learn from it. Okay, take your shot, learn. Next time, be a little better. Now, if that growth mindset, if that learn from it, next time I'll be a little better, and that's admirable. What I'm doing now is I'm creating a new, more sophisticated neural network, evaluative neural network in my brain that takes that old, I don't like losing, it means me whatever. I don't like, I can't enjoy winning. And then there's another network that includes that, goes, no, actually, as a matter of fact. And the more that you activate that, which is compassionate understanding, which is radical acceptance, which is closer to wise self, the more you do that, the more those circuits get myelinated. And over time, they become the predominant circuits. And so that other stuff still happens, but it's regulated before it even gets to conscious awareness. I wrote a book on shame called The Gift of Shame that talks about how shame, as we develop it as a social regulator and as a personal guide, eventually becomes a spiritual guide. Because you feel just a tiny bit guilty that you didn't meditate this morning. So you go meditate. Mm-hmm. Okay, that shame is a spiritual guide. And then you go, wow, that's my shame working as a spiritual guide. You feel a little affection for your shame. Okay, that's wise self, feeling affection for shame as a spiritual guide.
And is that where compassionate understanding comes in? Can you just define that a little bit for me?
Compassionate understanding is recognizing that there's an order to the world and that most people are just trying to get by and do their best, including me. And that explanations of anything that doesn't take into account there's an implicate order where everything fits together And most people have a reason that they're doing something that feels right to them, including me. If you have that understanding, that gives you a sense that the clearest understanding. Now you add that with being fully present in the present moment. A woman named Ruth Baer studied mindfulness. She came out with 5 characteristics of mindfulness that were universally true with all the mindfulness. There's thousands of meditation practices.
Mhm.
Well, all the effective ones have these 5 things. One of them is present moment orientation. Another one is accepting what we're feeling, being aware of it. Another one is awareness of our awareness. See, we're going towards wise self. Another one is we feel our judgments because we're making judgments all the time, but we don't get caught up in them. We observe them. Those judgments are there to help us navigate. So you use them as navigation tools rather than amp them up. A classic example of amping up judgments is attribution theory. So somebody does something you don't like. So you reduce them to that.
Mm-hmm.
So they're an asshole because they rip somebody off. Now, I don't like people ripping people off, but I know that there's a complex human being over there with other things causing them to do whatever they did. And varying levels of pathology that could cause that. Or just misunderstanding even. Now you see, as I'm looking at that deeper truth, that's compassion and understanding. It's the best understanding because as you understand it, then you begin to see, well, where's my part of it? Now, as a warrior, I'm a more masculine person. I have a feminine side. We all have masculine and feminine aspects, but we all have a deeper essence. Warrior is like, okay, well, I feel my compassion and understanding works better when I feel myself living my values. Being willing to take shots and, deal with the stress in service of my values. The feminine part of me goes, I'm willing to be an open channel of love in a world that has lots of suffering. And I can feel that suffering and still feel the love coming through me, be an open channel of emotion. Okay, that's the feminine with radical acceptance. And, as I describe them, you feel good. Those of you listening, when I describe open channel of emotion, feeling the world suffering and still feeling the love coming through the universe, 100% responsible for everything I experience and do, being true to my principles, being willing to suffer in service of my principles, feels good to hear that, doesn't it? That's your unconscious saying, yeah, that's what I like. That's how I want to grow. And when you start recognizing that you're committed to that growth and identifying as I'm one of those guys, that's actually who I am, then that's what shows up when you go, I'm not good enough. That's what shows up when, wait a minute, how come I'm not having more of a good time that this great thing happened? And then you start having a little bit more of a great time. You start feeling, of course, of course I'm not the best. Nobody's the best. I don't know. I mean, sure, there's got to be the best at certain things in 8 billion people, but you know what I mean. At a certain point, you walk into a room and you feel like, okay, whatever the social hierarchies are, I feel myself fitting in comfortably. And whether other people recognize it or not, when people recognize you for your position, it feels good. And when they don't, it's irritating. But then you can notice that feeling good. You can notice that irritating and go, okay, now the person that's noticing, why self? Radical acceptance. We see this a lot these days because as we grow, as we develop, our consciousness develop, we see more. For instance, we become more world-centric. So to a world-centric person who kind of identifies with humanity first, somebody says, my country, right or wrong, you go, no, that doesn't really fit with my worldview. My worldview is if my country's wrong, it's wrong. And if it's right, it's right. Now, I'm not going to get in an argument with a my country, right or wrong person, but I'm going to notice they're there, and then my compassionate understanding of them, and they're being virtuous according to their standard, my country, right or wrong. And okay, that's fine. And there's certain situations where you're a dangerous person to me or to other people with that little blind spot. And then I'll make an adjustment, but not because you're a bad person, just because that blind spot is a dangerous blind spot under certain circumstances.
Hmm.
And, I'm 100% responsible for everything I experience and do. If I'm aware of it, then I'm responsible for dealing with it.
And what's the emotional cost of not evolving into this new worldview?
It's every cost imaginable. The power that we have as human beings, as human consciousness, we can create reciprocating echo chambers of despair and kill ourselves. It can lead to death or get sick or surrender to addiction or be abusive or allow ourselves to be abused. I mean, it's the most dangerous thing there is. And so that's the cost. The cost is everything. Radical acceptance is also, I'm going to, resolute acceptance of death. Eventually I'm going to die. Now what I prefer is to be true to my values until I die. And eventually, no matter how quick on my feet I am, how many supplements I take or whatever, how many effective workouts I have and whatever, some's going to get to me, And I'm not going to do any of that stuff perfectly, but I'll just keep doing my best with it and have radical acceptance that that's the way and then I have my own purpose around that. So I'll be supporting the evolution of consciousness probably until I die, I suspect. I don't know. I mean, there's just another thing. You don't know about the next day until the next day. You don't know about that. You can never stop being committed to the work. Never stop recognizing that you're going to discover blind spots in ways that you can improve. Never, ever be able to do everything you can imagine yourself able to do. But if you have a progression of doing it in a way that feels healthy to you, that's pretty admirable.
Mm-hmm.
I find people like that, like you, and I find them very trustable. You're a trustable man. Why? You're true to your values. You do your best to grow. So that makes you a trustable man. Men like other trustable men. They like to affiliate with them. They like to co-create with them, like you and I are doing right now.
Mm-hmm. And what are some of the practical tools to move through this difficult transition? Are there rituals and routines that people can put in place? And one of the things I struggle with is, again, it's perfection in this, having episodes where I regress into basically turning it back in on myself.
Yes.
When I
despair.
Get overwhelmed by it. Yeah, that's right.
Well, there's a million practices. For instance, this morning, I swim every day for an hour, do a swim workout. And during that swim workout, I do a meditation that involves 100 different states of consciousness. Each one of them a state that I value. And I practice those every day. Every time I practice one of those states, it activates those circuits in my brain and they get a little stronger. So if you like to feel compassion and understanding, activate a state of compassion and understanding, however you want to activate it. You can do it with just pure mindfulness. I call it attunement. We can all do it right now. Just be aware of your breath. Okay, now as we're aware of our breath, we're aware of our body. This is why one of the keys to mindfulness that Ruth Baer discovered was labeling and describing with words our inner experience. Because when I say I'm feeling a little bit of relaxation in my body, it takes me into my body. This is where we're using our capacity for language to direct ourselves into immediate experience. So you can be aware of your breath right now. Okay? Just being aware of your breath right now is a practice. Brings us to the present moment. Now let's being aware of our breath with acceptance and caring intent. Okay? Now let's be aware of our sensation. Feeling comfortable, I'm sitting in this chair, I feel it under my elbows with acceptance and caring intent. Feel a little pain in one of my toes. I have an arthritic toe. Okay. I'm aware of that with acceptance and caring intent. Be aware of emotion with acceptance and caring intent. It's easy for me now. This is fun. So I'm aware, I'm feeling connected with Jeremy. I'm having a good time. I have an egoic part of me that likes, being an expert. That's very gratifying. So that's easy to be accepted. But, also there's a little caution. When you like being an expert too much, you get a little grandiose. You're not as much aware of vulnerability. But okay, acceptance and carrying intent, feeling emotion, thought. Be aware of thought with acceptance and carrying intent. Is what I'm thinking. Be aware of judgment. We're always judging whether something's attractive or unattractive, whether it's true or not true, whether it's moral or not moral. Not just other things. We're judging ourselves. Are we attractive, unattractive? Are what we doing, is what we saying or doing, is it true to reality? Are we behaving in a virtuous or a non-virtuous fashion? We're aware of it. We're making judgments about ourselves all the time. Your judgments, critical judgments of yourselves, are what cause so much suffering. And for me too. But now I'm aware of those judgments with acceptance and carrying it. Here's Keith being ashamed. Here's Keith feeling guilty about something that happened when he was, 22. She wasn't having a good time, but you kept going anyway. Oh, I don't know. A little ashamed of that. All right, there. Still, this, 55 years later. A little bit of, okay. All right. I'm aware of it with acceptance and carrying intent. Desire. What do I want? With acceptance and carrying intent. Desire, we discover desire. We don't decide on it. When I'm swimming at the pool, I saw some babe walks by, in a bikini. My body goes, wow. So I want to consume her at that moment. Okay. But I'm aware of that with acceptance and carrying intent. Instead, I say, have a nice day. It's like, do I feel ashamed at that desire? No, of course not. If I'm thirsty, I'm okay. Same thing. Want to drink. So, here's a healthy thing to drink. This is healthy organic green tea. If it was vodka, that would be really unhealthy. Okay. And so if, you act on desire in a way that's true for your values, fine. You accept, but you always accept. Radical acceptance is, with acceptance and carrying intent. What I just told you is a practice of being attuned to yourself and to the world that you can do all the time. Not do it with another person. If you're looking at this, look at me. I wonder what Keith is feeling, sensing, thinking, judging, wanting with acceptance and carrying intent. And now you're tuning to me. You're focusing on compassion and understanding of me, right? All right. What that does is creates an empathic circuit. Now, remember when you get threatened, you go into defensive states?
Mm-hmm.
Those defensive states involve amplified or numbed emotions. You've had both of them, as have I. You've been numbed. Oh, we just won and I don't feel anything, or right. Amplified. Oh, God, I made a mistake. I deserve death. I mean, okay. Amplified or numbed emotions. Distorted perspectives. There's always some distorted negative story. Destructive impulses, fight, flight, flee often, distort, attack, deny, rationalize, use. Destructive impulses and diminish capacities for empathy and self-reflection. So that's a defensive state. Get threatened, amplify numbed emotions, distorted perspective, destructive impulse, reduce capacities for empathy and self-reflection. Attuning to ourself creates self-reflection. Attuning to another creates empathy. That deconstructs the defensive state. Looking for compassion and understanding deconstructs distorted perspectives. Observing with interest, amplified or numbed emotions, takes us a step away from them and regulates them. Okay? And what happens when we do that? We enter states of healthy response to the present moment, which are states of radical acceptance, being true to our values. Oh, here we are again. Radical acceptance, being true to our values, being an open channel of love in the world. As we practice, so that's one universal practice that you can do all the time. And so I encourage everybody. Now, people don't understand about spiritual practice, mindfulness, zazen, Buddhist meditation, Vajrayana, all those things, all of them. First of all, they're all great. All of them can be broken down into manageable pieces that you can just direct yourself to do. Energy follows thought. Cognitive behavioral therapy happened because people noticed we can affect our thoughts and our behaviors way more easily than we can affect our emotions. Yeah, I mean, you can affect your emotions too with the state practice that I've been describing. Okay. So energy follows thought. Directing yourself into compassion and understanding strengthens that reflex and eventually teaches your unconscious. That's the best survival characteristic there is.
Mm-hmm. How can this practice or this whole concept, I guess, help people through big life transitions? Now, I found whether it was the young athletes at college, NBA, NHL, it didn't matter, when they had their first major injury, it was like the end of the world. I just sat down with a 16-year-old ballerina who had a surgery on her knee. Feels like that's the end of it all because her rehab hasn't gone how she would have liked it to go at this point. I see it at the other end of athletics and business with retirement from sport and removal from your whole culture. You're removed from everything that you've grown up with. So how can people use this concept to help with those transitions and indeed with loss?
Well, let's talk about, just for a moment, development. So we develop through stages. If you're a man, you develop from acolyte to warrior to man of wisdom. And the way and what a warrior is someone who's true to their principles in the face of adversity. And so the way that we develop as humans is we move through life and then we encounter ordeals. And we discover ourselves in those ordeals. Okay, she now has to discover herself in the ordeal of her wounded knee. And now radical acceptance is, all right, what do I want to do? What's possible? And am I willing to commit myself to that? And am I willing to have the resilience and the patience and the conscientiousness to continue to do the work right now, which doesn't involve learning more ballet? The work now involves doing everything I can do to strengthen my knee again so that I can do my ballet. And maybe she'll be able to do it, and maybe she won't. If she is, great. She moves to the next stage until something else happens. It's another ordeal. And if not, okay, like an athlete leaving sport, that's an ordeal. How am I going to face it? Now, we're an ultra-social species. We want to help each other and be helped by each other. So one big thing always when you hit an ordeal is get some help. In the hero's journey, there's these stages. Joseph Campbell wrote about this in Hero with a Thousand Faces, pulling on Jungian archetypes. We're called by the world. This injury for her is a call. She can ignore it, get worse, or she can take the call. Or, you feeling horrible. That's a call. So mostly people say, no, I don't want to deal with it until it keeps coming. So finally, people will often say, yeah. All right, so then there's the threshold guardian. I have to do something different. And I haven't done it before. I don't want to do it. That's the threshold guardian. But I'm going to find a way through to do that new thing. And once you do that, you're on the road of adventures. And you're going on the road of adventures trying to move forward in this new territory. And you want to get wise guides. You want magical help. So where do we go for wise guides and magical help these days? Coaches, therapists, experts, mentors. And we can do that indirectly through books and movies and stuff. But we also just need it in person. Yeah. And one of the reasons we need it in person is a cool thing about humans, ultra-social humans, is what Joseph Chilton Pearce called the model imperative. The model imperative. The model imperative is that we'll hit periods. The first 25 years, there's neurological periods where we're primed to learn certain things. For instance, between 15 and 20, the human nervous system hunger for spiritual connectedness doubles. Now that's a big deal. That's why when I'm working with teenagers, I'll teach them a spiritual practice that gives them a subjective experience of connection to spirit. Now, when that happens, our nervous system is looking for a model to grow towards. It's called the model imperatives. And if we have one, we go, oh, I'm going to grow in that direction. And one great thing about the current age, where we used to have like 4 or 5 models in the tribe. Now we got 1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of kids want to be famous. They want to be influencers. Like 63% of kids said, I'd like to be an influencer. Fine. Okay. But what are you really wanting? You're imagining that if you're an influencer, that you're going to feel like you're at peace on purpose. That I feel like I'm living a worthwhile life. Now, the worthwhile life might involve some kind of, audience, but the worthwhile, that's just an artifact, really. The worthwhile life is the experience of the worthwhile life. I want that. The experience of being on purpose, the experience of making a difference in the collective. I want that. Now, what if I want that in a healthy way? For me, supporting the evolution of consciousness is a healthy way. What if I want it in an unhealthy way? What if I just want people to know my name and pay attention to me? And all I need to do is say horrible things about other people again and again and again, be a troll. All I have to do is that. All I have to do is be mean and attacking. And I'll become more and more famous. I mean, this is narcissism, right? Narcissists don't care if you think you're the best. They just want to be the most important. So that they'll be the best worst. Yeah, I mean, it's too easy a target to use Trump as a classic exemplar of narcissism.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can think of people on, with the advent of social media in our field, in human performance.
Of course.
That they've sat in a lab their whole life, and some people come out of the lab and start doing big things, and they're becoming known for just tearing these people down.
Yeah, or you remember, every time there's a change, it's an ordeal. Great success is an ordeal. You need to rise to the challenge. If you don't, it'll corrupt you. Just like failure is an ordeal. If you don't rise to the challenge, it'll kill you. This is the masculine in us. Are we going to take the ordeal on, learn from it, grow from it, and move forward? And as we do, I have faith that good things happen. Now, I also have a lot of data that good things happen. But statistical data is, my unconscious is indifferent to statistical data. My unconscious cares about what I viscerally believe on a deep level. And so that grows slowly. And every once in a while, you discover yourself different. And you go, wow, I used to feel bad when that happened, and I don't anymore. I've grown. I have more radical acceptance. I have less attachment, and we like that. Just saying that, everybody listening, I don't have to tell you that more radical acceptance and less attachment is a good thing. You know it's a good thing. You feel it in your body. Your unconscious votes by hearing that and going, yeah. So the attunement practice is one of a lot of practices. My 100 different states practices, I just like to do stuff like that. And I don't know what the alchemy of it is, but there's a part of my life where I went from feeling like I'm kind of messed up. I was messed up when I was a teenager to, I'm moving forward, kind of in denial, but then, I have issues, into, into I'm a happy person who has ups and downs, into, God, I'm a happy person. Each one of those shifts just kind of happened, and I discovered, wow, I'm different. Now, I was doing a lot of practices, trying to live my values the whole time, trying to make my relationships with my family and myself and everybody as good as possible, trying to do the best work I could do and everything. I don't know what part of that, how that turned into all of a sudden Keith felt happier, but it did. Mm-hmm. Not only that, it usually does. And so I have faith in that, because not just because of the data, because it feels spiritually correct to me. I have faith in it. And that doesn't mean the world isn't a dangerous place, but it also means the world is an enchanted place.
Keith, I think that's a beautiful note to start wrapping up on. What's the best way for people to learn more about this concept from you and to connect with you and learn about your other teachings?
My website is drkeithwitt.com. Everything on that website is free. You can get all my books except one that I co-own the rights to that with Integral Life, Loving Completely. There's hundreds of videos and blogs, thousands of pages of stuff, 10 books. It's all there. Go on my website and use it to grow and thrive. And if you want to throw me a bone, join my website so you get my newsletter every once in a while when I'm doing a talk like this, and I let people know about it. And if you use my stuff, give me a footnote. Not necessary, but I have enough of an ego that's gratifying whenever I get a footnote. So anyway, drkeithwitt.com.
And where would you say people should start if they're just beginning this journey?
Just go through it. It's arranged to navigate whatever you're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
You want to work on your sexuality, there's a whole section. You want to work on your relationships. You want to work on your physical health. It's all connected. So just go through it. Go through the lectures or to the blogs and see something that attracts you and just check it out. See if there's something that you can embody that'll help you feel like you're moving forward on the road of adventures, on your epic journey.
Keith, that's beautiful. And thank you so much. There's been such a rich conversation, and I know people are going to get so much from it. So
Great.
Thanks for your time today.
My pleasure.
That was an amazing conversation with Dr. Keith Witt on radical acceptance and the evolution of consciousness. Here are the 3 key takeaways from today's episode. Number 1, radical acceptance is the key to peace and growth. It's about taking full responsibility for our inner and outer experiences while maintaining compassionate understanding. Number 2, motivation systems evolve. Moving from perfectionism to value-driven growth brings deeper fulfillment and spiritual alignment. Number 3, mindfulness and attunement are powerful daily practices. By observing our thoughts, feelings, and judgments with caring intent, we transform defensive states into empowered responses. If today's discussion resonated with you and you're looking for ways to integrate early detection, personalized health strategies, and strength-based longevity into your own life, we'd love to help. At Vitality Collective, we've built these principles into a comprehensive system designed to optimize health and performance at any stage of life. If you're ready to take action and see how this approach could work for you, visit www.vitality-collective.com to learn more. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.